So I'm here with author, teaching artist, actress, and storyteller Karol Brown, who has portrayed Harriet Tubman for over 20 years. And she is also the author of the new book, The Harriet Tubman Way, an inspirational guide to self-love, empowerment, and legendary leadership for girls, released on Women's Equality Day this year. So how are you doing today, Karol?
I am great. That was a mouthful, wasn't it?
It was. Can you tell me how you became passionate about Harriet Tubman in the first place?
All right. So I go back some years. I'm in Ohio now, but for 28 years, I lived in the Seattle, Washington area. And I worked for the VA hospital, and I had a collateral duty, which was the African American Special Emphasis Coordinator, they called it. And one of my duties was Black History Month and MLK programs. So around the time I saw the Cicely Tyson movie where she presented Harriet Tubman, she's excellent. And there was a parable that Harriet shared in that video, that movie that I had never heard before. And I said, that sounds good. I need that for Black History Month. So I went researching Harriet Tubman and found out so much that I didn't know about her. Did you know she lived to be 92 years old? Most people don't realize that. Most people just know about her time on the Underground Railroad, but she was a woman that had so much to give to the world that I said, yes, I want to share her stories. I happened to be involved with Toastmasters at that time, learning storytelling. And so it was just natural that I decided to put a little story about Harriet Tubman as Harriet Tubman. And then that just snowballed into a program where my husband James and I traveled all around Washington State and Ohio to present Harriet Tubman. And I present her as an elderly woman so I can share her whole life stories.
Yeah, and she has such, an interesting legacy. I think a lot of people miss facts about her. The fact that she was considered, part of the Union Army. She was one of the first African American first women, period, to lead a military assault.
That's right. She was. She First of all, Harriet Tubman, once she was able to free herself, and I say the only way she was able to do that was self-love. And that's where the book comes in, that I'm teaching self-love through her stories. If you think about what she had to overcome in her life, she was born a slave, no education, just no control over her life. But when she got free, she knew that she had to free as many other people as she could. When she heard about the war, she said, I've got to go volunteer. So she found a way to get commissioned to go and help serve in the war. And she was in South Carolina. So she was given several duties. First, a nurse, and then she was a scout. She had her own team of scouts, and she was also a spy for the US government, for the Army, so that she had some important duties to care for people. And then after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and before then, Black people could join the Union Army, but they couldn't really fight. But after that, they could. And so that June 1863 is when Harriet Tubman and her men launched a gun raid down the Combahee River in South Carolina. And with their 3 boats, they were able to rescue almost 800 people without losing a single person. So that was Harriet Tubman who put that brainstorm raid together under Colonel Montgomery. Yes, she was the first woman to ever put together any kind of gun raid.
And that's hugely inspirational, when you take the whole story into context. Like you said, she was illiterate, and then she had left her first husband. I believe that she lived in Maryland.
Yes, she lives in Maryland. She was born in Maryland, Dorchester County, which is near Cambridge, Maryland. That's where she was. And interesting enough, there were free colored people living side by side with slaves. So her husband was a free man, John Tubman. Most people don't know that she was not born as Harriet Tubman. She was born as Araminta Ross, and her nickname was Minty. But when she married John Tubman, she, this is my interpretation of why she changed her name, but she knew that people, when they go up north and they're free, a lot of people change their names. They pick a name that they felt like is their name, that they don't want to have a slave name. They didn't want to be found if someone comes looking for them. So they changed their name quite often. Her mother's name was Harriet. So she decided to change her name to Harriet, and that's how she became Harriet Tubman. Now, John, he was free. He lived in Maryland, and he didn't really want to go. He didn't want her to leave and go up north. And so she didn't let him know when she was leaving. And so when she finally was free, she went back to get him after about 2 years. And he had found him another wife. So she moved on with her life. And later on, when she was about 48, she got married again. His name was Nelson Davis. Now she was 48 and he was 28. So Harriet Tubman still had a little spark in her life with elder years.
That's interesting. I never knew that she married a man that was younger than her.
Yes, she did. Unfortunately, he died before her. He had tuberculosis. They were married about 18 years.
Wow.
Mhm. It's
So
so much that people don't know about Harriet Tubman. That's why I just love sharing her stories and how she is just an inspiration to me and to others to what you can do with your life if you just realize it. She was a visionary. She saw herself free long before she was able free. She could picture it. She could hear music. She can visualize people meeting her on the other side, and then she kept that vision in her heart until she had the determination that she was able to make that happen for herself and others.
and back to the book, you've written this book, The Harriet Tubman Way, and I guess the audience you intend to inspire is young girls.
I do with that book. That's actually my second book. The first book is 30 Lessons in Love, Leadership, and Legacy from Harriet Tubman. So it's not gender specific. Um, and so that one has some of the same stories. But this one I just felt, seeing the situations today as young ladies often don't have the self-love that I know that would help them throughout life. I have worked with girls in fourth, fifth, sixth grades, and even at that age, they have a lot of negativity towards themselves. They don't really find the some of them, not all of them. Some need more determination, more empowerment to know that they can do great things. And so, yes, I've written this book for those girls, but older girls and older women too, because it's not something that just dissolves as you get older. A lot of us still need to take care of ourselves first before we can do much for our community and our families. So, yes, for girls of all ages.
That's incredible. You know, there was a movie called Harriet. It was released in 2019. I wanted to know your thoughts on that particular film.
I love the film. Of course, knowing the history, I could see where they did their own little spin on some things, added some characters that, they had to come up with. But I love that they brought Harriet back into the public eye, up on the big screen, and sharing her stories and how dynamic she was. So I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Cynthia um, presentation of Harriet Tubman. I thought she was ideal because Harriet Tubman was about 5 foot tall. And I particularly liked the scene when she was up in face of somebody checking her papers to see, oh, this paper says that you're 5'5" or something. And she said, oh, I must have had on my high heels shoes that she was very sharp. Harriet was very sharp, and she would be possibly in that circumstances, and she was prepared. So when she might come back to Maryland to rescue people, there was one particular story where she said that she knew that she could possibly run into one of those men that used to call himself her owner or that she worked for. And so she came prepared with 2 live chickens tied up in string, carrying them through through the streets. She also had on a bonnet and a shawl and a cane that looked like an old woman. So when she came just a few feet from this man who could have recognized her as Harriet Tubman, she let the string go, and the chickens were jumping all around, and she chased the chickens another way away from him, and he's back there laughing at this old granny chasing chickens, and she's smiling in front of her in her side inside thinking, yeah, you laughing at me, but you don't know how close you came to Harriet Tubman, who's taking your people away from you and thinking them up freedom.
Um, in that movie, Harriet, you mentioned Cynthia Erivo, who plays Harriet Tubman. She's a London-born actress with Nigerian parents, and it was a little bit of controversy about her being cast in the role because she's British, and she's playing an African-American icon. I wanted to know your thoughts about that.
Actors are picked for the part because they're the right person for it. And although I look forward to seeing it's another actress that's supposed to do Harriet that I just love. I just name is thinking right now, but I think Cynthia did a great job. I have no issues with that at all. She Because we all come from the same roots, we all came from the same roots, and I have no problem with that at all. I think she did an excellent job.
And do you have a film out as well?
I was one of the products of not being able to go out and do my programs during the pandemic. I was fortunate enough to connect with a local college that helped me get a video presentation of my stories. And so, yes, I have that available. We showed it at local theater here last month. And what I plan on doing with that is, so my book is basically a curriculum. And the way it is meant to be used in groups, like mentoring groups. Say the church has a group of girls that meets, and each chapter has a story, but it also has a lesson, and it has information that I would hope that they would take in and research and journal and those type of things. So what I plan on doing is having my video clips as part of the curriculum. So any school or wherever they are, they're teaching the curriculum based on the book. I wouldn't necessarily always be there, but they would have me presenting Harriet Tubman and the stories that they're hearing and reading about in each chapter of the book. So that's how I plan on using that.
Again, I'm here with Karol Brown, the author of The Harriet Tubman Way, an inspirational guide to self-love, empowerment, and legendary leadership for girls. Where can people purchase the book?
It's available on Amazon and any bookstore that you usually purchase your books, definitely. I also have available on my website, which is Karol with a K, V, Vanessa, Brown.com. So yes, it's there. If someone orders directly from me, I'd be glad to sign their book for them so they have a signed copy.
Thank you so much, Karol, for taking the time. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here.
Definitely enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
You too. Bye-bye.